Let's come full circle on a few things, right? Welcome back to the With Joe Wehbe Podcast. If you're just joining us, we've been talking recently about obviously how we're wired. We've been talking about meaning, fulfillment, and the deeper questions of life. We've been talking most recently about the importance of not just community, but really social connection, the quality of our relationships, and the support we have in our lives. And I want to zoom out for a bit. We're already pretty zoomed out, but I want to zoom out even more. I want to talk about, just want to get a perspective on how important it is to understand a lot about how to make our individual lives better, how to understand how our mind's working against us, and how we can kind of pick up the reins, get in the driver's seat of life, as I say, and take control. I want to talk about why it's important. Now, why you think it's important now is because you think this will make me feel better, which it will. I've learned all this stuff, which is just the tip of the iceberg, I'm sure. I learned a lot of this stuff about the happiness curve, the expectations gap, the pleasure treadmill, through experience, through reading, through slow and painful learning. And it enabled me to look back at my life and realize times I'd been low when I really just didn't understand what was going on with me. And I feel like this deep understanding of ourselves is just a non-negotiable for participating in life on this planet. And so that is true, right? And when if you've kept listening to this, you're probably thinking about, how am I going to make my life better, right? How is this going to help me unlock more, do more, feel better and more content with what I'm already doing, feel better about my position in the world, feel significant, feel important, feel loved, stop carrying around the wrong bad ideas, reprogram myself, rewire myself. And that's great. But at the end of every podcast episode, I have a line. And that line is, the best way to open 1,000 doors for you is to concentrate on opening doors for others. Now, have you thought about that? Have you thought about how this can make other people's lives better, or only about how it can make your life better? You may have thought more about one or the other. There's certainly no judgment for doing so. Don't forget, we're naturally very egocentric and ego-driven. I'm not an exclusion at all. I mean, I've got a whole podcast just in my name where it's just me talking. Right? So you must be thinking, how big an ego does this kid have to have? So that's pretty natural, right? And sometimes we start on that place and we end up somewhere different. But what I believe, and what the magic of all this is, that the two are not mutually exclusive. Helping give, not shove it down their throat, but helping give those around us more self-awareness, quite incidentally, and basically just sharing material that is very suggestive, is super powerful for us. So if you think about it, if you think about the concept of the 1,000 doors, first discussed episodes 4 and 5, talk about people who turn down the first door often do so because they don't understand what lies behind it. They can only see the next room, or they only have an impression of the next room, the next opportunity. It's like if someone gives you a book, a Jordan Peterson book, or The Alchemist, or a book by Joe Wehbe, or whatever, and they give you this book and they just think, if I read this book, I'm just going to have an insight into what's written in this book. But what a book gives you is normally the interest to read more, to build the habit of reading, to figure out what you like reading, to get into more books and learn more, and it compounds. And that's basically the 1,000 doors. The 1,000 doors is, you don't actually know what lies next, but what's in that room is going to be more doors, and behind those doors are more rooms, and those rooms all have more doors, blah, 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 blah. When you turn down the first door, you turn down the first of 1,000 doors. It's not just one opportunity, it's all these interlinked compounding opportunities that lie behind it. Now that is not specific to being a high achiever, an Academy Award winner, an artist, an entrepreneur, an author, whatever It's certainly not limited to that. It certainly applies, that principle applies to learning and interacting with other people. So we talked recently about being connected. So you imagine going on this self-awareness journey that you're on if you're listening to this podcast, going on this self-awareness journey and compounding your returns, learning more and more about yourself early and earlier in life, hopefully, so that you can reorientate and be better prepared to deal with the experience as you go forward. Now imagine the contrast, right? Imagine the 180 of that. Because when you don't build this awareness, right? When you don't deep dive into how we're wired and how meaning is really built and achieved in our lives, when you don't explore this, you're likely to remain insecure, frustrated, anxious, depressed. You're likely to be stuck or have not so much autonomy to get out of negative experiences. And your experience on this world might be a lot darker. So there's this 180, right? That's the first idea I want you to get your head around, right? The 1,000 doors versus being stuck in the shitty room you're in now. But then, and this is when it gets really powerful, how do you impact people in each scenario? Okay? How do you impact people in each scenario? So what is someone who's going through the 1,000 doors journey, who's getting enlightened, who's learning more, what impact do they have on other people? Do you think it's positive or negative? Right? So I as a personal example, actually let's not focus on me because that's a pretty obvious one. But if you think about anyone you know who's doing good in the world, right? I've got, certain people, like I think of people the real masters of wisdom. I kind of look up to people like Charlie Munger. I love like your Naval Ravikants of the world, Tim Ferriss, Seth Godin, and everyone's kind of got some sort of people they can identify top of mind who are having a very positive impact. But you think about, it's not just the one-to-one people they reach, it's then the people they reach, they then go on to do other things. And then those people they reach go on to do other things. And then it compounds. Now the flip side is that when you're in a negative headspace, right, when you are trapped, when you are insecure, you think about people who don't understand Astro the dog. Think about people who don't understand the pleasure treadmill. People who don't understand the happiness curve. People who don't understand that there is no wealth but a wealth of social connections. If you think about those people, how are they going to impact the world? If you ever read Robert Greene's books, you've seen how some of the most dangerous and troublesome characters in history act based on personal insecurity. All right, in his books, he's gone examples like Richard Nixon, Howard Hughes. Man, I'm just scratching the surface. I'm really drawing blanks here. I didn't prepare to talk about that. Even you want to talk about, I don't know what his would have been, but Hitler. You want to talk about dictators, power-hungry people, insecure people who have this drive based on this really dark incentive, and it's quite personal, and they actually have a profound negative impact. So if you think about the 1,000 doors and the importance of opening these doors for others, just comprehend how powerful that impact is. Right? So it doesn't mean sharing this podcast. If this podcast is a great tool for it, great. I've certainly tried my best to make it a tool for enabling basically this 1,000 doors journey of awareness. Okay, that's essentially what we're trying to do here. I've tried my best. I'll keep trying. If it's something else, share that. Right? Great. Or if it's your own ideas, great. Share that. The people around you need it. Because then if they wake up, they'll start helping people instead of hurting people. You get all these 1,000 doors journeys heading in the right direction, instead of what a lot of modern life is people's insecurity breeds other people's insecurity. It gets passed on through families. It gets passed on through bullying. It gets passed on through relationships. If people are better formed and better prepared for the reality of life, they'll positively impact with others instead of negatively impacting with others. And that 180 has profound impact for our culture, our world. Has a huge impact for what life will be like for other people who we don't even know now, who haven't even been born yet. So today I just wanted to link that, the importance of that understanding, which we always think about, oh, this is good for me to learn this stuff. Thanks, Joe, for sharing what you've learned along the way. Cool. But then it's so much bigger than you or I. It's not about just making our lives better. It's about interlinking that. 1,000 doors. The best way to open doors for you is to concentrate on opening doors for others. So that's just making sure you share. So I believe, and I've talked about the book example, podcast example, the subtle way. You're not going to sit someone down and try and tell them about Astro the dog, the pleasure treadmill, all these things, and try and give them a lecture. No one wants a lecture. But the way to do it, I've found, is the very casual. Here's a book you might be interested in reading. Right? Here's a TED Talk you might be interested in watching. Here's a podcast episode you might find useful and enjoyable. Let me know what you think. And it's that very casual way of giving it to them and letting them opt into it. You might find that incredibly powerful. I'm certainly grateful to all those people who did that to me. And it's such a simple revolution to just share good things and the ideas that help people start 1,000 doors. It's not going to take much effort, but it's very powerful. It changes the whole way we're interacting together. So I shouldn't need to remind you that this is the With Joe Wehbe podcast, obviously, but I shouldn't need to remind you, as I try to do at the end of every episode, that the best way to open 1,000 doors for you is to concentrate on opening doors for others.